All right, I'm going to talk a bit about my approach to private coaching, how I think you can make the most out of a private coaching arrangement. And obviously, this is something that I'm going to have uh, some bias on in terms of my preferred approach, but this is very much influenced by my experience over the last couple of years where I've done, I want to say 300 or 400 hours of private coaching since early 2020. And I worked with a lot of different profiles of players. I've worked with um, low to high stakes players, live and online, tournament and cash. So as a result, I think that the way that I approach coaching is less specific and in that way aimed at anyone who's struggling with their poker game and doesn't really understand how it is that they're meant to improve. I think this is a really good sign that coaching is a appropriate fit for you if you're feeling kind of stuck or unsure. And I'm going to talk about the way to go about that in the best way possible. So the strengths of getting private coaching over all of the self-guided methods that I've been describing so far are that it's personalized, specific, and targeted, which really highlights the difference between interacting with someone directly about your game and using a resource that's been designed for the masses. So as I've described in the other videos, there's great tools, there's great videos, there's all sorts of different ways to get better at poker. But I think that at a certain point in time, players realize that the information that they're taking in is not it's not working exactly for where they're at today. Or it could work, but they need some extra guidance to figure out how to make it work. And that's kind of the overarching idea of this course. I'm hoping to take a lot of what I found was necessary at the early stages of private coaching with almost all of my students and present it to everyone who buys this course in a way that they're understanding what they need and how to get there. It just seems silly to me that so much of my private coaching, regardless of skill level, was it was maybe 20 to 30% like answering specific questions from experience and 70 to 80% helping that player figure out how to work on their game when they're not on call with me. Because realistically, it's too expensive to spend all of your study time on a call with a private coach. The study group is a really good medium for, let's say, like your average day for needing interaction with people who are going to help you grow. But the reason you come to a private coach is, I'm going to move on to the third point here, which is expert mentorship. So you come with questions that you expect that person can answer from experience, and you don't necessarily have that level of confidence in a study group member, in a friend who you talk hands with, even in a training site coach, someone on a forum. These are all good places to exchange information. But if you want to be confident that your concerns are going to be answered by someone who's been there before, you're far more likely to find that in a private coach. And I mean, I know I described like 100% of what I thought private coaching was already, but I do think 10, 20% of the value that you get out of a private coach is external motivation. It's easy to stay on top of what it is that you feel you need to get done when you know you have a meeting with someone who's going to help you work on that same topic 2 weeks from now or whatever it is. It's very similar to getting a trainer at the gym. If you know that they're going to ask you how the last week went, and then you're going to show up and you're going to do your 20-minute workout or whatever. Yeah, that 20-minute workout is great for keeping like a baseline level of fitness. But then you're going to go home for a week and you're going to have to do something else until you see that trainer again, unless you're, someone who sees a trainer 4 times a week or whatever it is. But I'm going to assume that most people watching this course are not that person. But you might have some experience with, visiting a trainer once in a while, going to, I don't know, get physical therapy once in a while. It's maintenance, but 90% of the work comes independently between sessions. So having someone who motivates you to get that work done is, really just the hallmark of a good coach. Now I perhaps am not the right person to ask about the weaknesses of private coaching. In my opinion, really the only drawback of investing in private coaching is the cost. And there are, I maybe could have gone further on this slide in saying that relying on a coach for all of your needs is probably a bit foolhardy. I don't think that you can accelerate your way to the top of poker simply by hopping on a call with a coach for 4 hours a day every single day until you're there. At the end of the day, you need to put in independent work and grow your own skill set to become one of the best players. So if that's your goal, yes, coaching is absolutely part of it. But again, it's the relationship that I described where you're checking in, you're maintaining, you're getting, I don't know, like almost consulting like advice. This is how a lot of my coaching relationships have been. And in between sessions, all of the real work is happening, all the growth is happening. And ideally, over time, the amount of private coaching that you need becomes lower and lower and lower because you're growing more and more confident in your own methods. So the pitfalls to avoid when thinking about coaching or when going through private coaching, the what I'm calling disaster management here is the reactionary approach to hiring in the first place. So think about the last time you went on a big downswing. It feels as though you need to do something about that downswing. So if you can afford it, the natural idea that comes to mind is to get a second opinion on your game, to have someone look at the hands, to have someone look at the tournaments, someone to talk to about why exactly are things going poorly right now. Now, this is understandable, and it's not even a bad way to approach coaching. But if the only time you seek out coaching is when you're in a downswing, you're going to have this narrow view of what the point of the coaching is. You're going to think that every time things are going well, I don't need help. And every time things are going poorly, I need someone to fix that for me. And this is a dangerous relationship to establish with your coach, but also with your gambling, right? Like the financial outcomes month to month, year to year are going to change based largely on randomness. And if you're not confident in identifying what's random and what's skill based, then it's quite possible that you're not ready to be playing professionally. So it is worth some close evaluation of your relationship with downswings or upswings before you think about hiring a coach just to fix every downswing, right? So I do think it's important to come at this with the mentality of coaching is a long-term investment that everyone needs to be successful. And I'm going to visit that coach regardless of whether things are going poorly or well, just because I want to keep pushing my progress forward. Now, the second point here on preparedness is more about specific sessions. It's, I think, commonly stated in all educational realms that the best students have a plan for what it is that they're trying to take away from the teacher. They understand what they're dissatisfied with. They show up with questions. They show up ready to engage. And with this sort of blind faith approach, where you show up and just think that the coach is all knowing and ready to fix whatever it is going wrong is a bit misguided. So doing that, even just 10 minutes of reflection before your session, is going to make a big difference on the quality of that session. And long term, the quality of your coaching relationship is going to go way up if you're more self-critical and more prepared to take control of the learning path that you're going to go on with your coach. And this sort of ties into the next couple of points here. I mean, if you're looking for a quick fix to your game, I'm honestly not sure if coaching is the best way to accomplish that. It can be, I guess, like relieving to have a conversation with an expert and to hear them agree or disagree with your analysis. But it's very much like my problem with going to PioSolver, copying in a hand history and just saying, did I play this hand well? It's not the whole picture, right? You're really not getting the most out of what that tool is offering you if all you're trying to figure out is yes or no, did I play that well? Being more critical and aiming for bigger things essentially are going to allow you to make the most out of a coaching relationship. So again, planning for the long term, rather than thinking about, what went wrong today or what hand is really bugging me today. And this ties into the non-specific approach that I think, this is more like the unpreparedness, right? If you just have that feeling that something's not working, but you don't know exactly what it is you want to work on, you're just showing up, going through the motions of like, oh yeah, I'm here for my session. What can you do for me? It's not going to be nearly as effective. You'll probably get something out of it, but it's not going to be nearly as effective as, 3-bet pots have not been going well for me. I've been really uncomfortable out of position. How can we improve my theoretical understanding of that spot? That little bit of preparation, that little bit of specificity around what it is you're trying to accomplish is going to make that session go great. You're going to take away exactly what you needed to take away, and then you're going to have something to work on when you end the session. So the best practices, in my opinion, when using private coaching to further your game, I hadn't talked about this yet, but number one really is finding the right coach. There are a lot of options, much like training videos, much like live streams, all of these, much like solvers. Finding the right coach for you might take a while, depending on what it is that you need personally. There's different price points, there's different backgrounds, there's coaches who are mostly players, there's players who are mostly coaches, and it's going to be unclear what works for you until you try. There's also the question of whether you're going to be getting a coach through a staking program or a CFP, or if you're going to be paying by the hour. And all of those can be beneficial, but it's personal circumstance to figure that out. So giving some thought to who's going to work for you, and again, not just assuming that everyone has all the answers. If you're working with a coach for a few hours and it's just not working for you, that's it. I don't see any reason to think that forcing that relationship is the right answer when there's such a large number of qualified coaches on the market. The next tip is to come prepared. And I already talked about this in the previous slide, but you're gonna see that hour or however long it is that you work with your coach, you're gonna see that session make such a huge stride compared to aimless, what can you help me with today? Presentation. If you're not prepared, it's almost like a seminar. You're asking for a coaching video, like a training video, but in real time, and you're paying a lot more for it. So coming with specific questions is great. Have too many questions, right? If you don't get to all of them, no problem. But having documents, having notes that your coach can look over with you, having all of the things that you worked on before that session documented is going to inform your coach. How have things been going? Where has your focus been? What does your study look like? Your coach might not even think to ask about these things because very often they're just going to help you with whatever it is you ask them to help you with. But if you bring too much information, they can choose what they want to ignore and what they want to focus on. And that's going to make the session go even better. Now, proactive approach refers to sort of the opposite of the disaster management approach that I highlighted in the pitfall section. If you assume that coaching is part of the program, and I'll just bring up this last point now, and you aim for slow, steady progress, then you are going to accept that you can't solve all of your problems today. And you're also going to accept that downswings will happen even when you're working on your game. And having that mindset is so much healthier than going through these highs and lows of, I'm the best player, I'm never having a losing session, I don't need to work on my game, to, wow, where did all my money go? What exactly is going wrong? I don't understand it. I need to find a coach ASAP. This is such a chaotic way to live as a poker player, especially if you're aiming to be a professional poker player. It's not sustainable, and you will burn out going through that process. But working with a coach to set up small goals and take you through a steady learning path is it's completely different. It is the professional approach, in my opinion. And it's really, when I work with my students, I usually do an intro consultation for 30 minutes to make sure that it's a good fit. And I'm very upfront about this being my only approach. I don't work with someone who's expecting me to put out a fire, right? The reason we build a working relationship is to watch them take control of their own growth and to do it gradually, whatever pace makes sense for them. I'm basically just there to set up the milestones and to show them the best way to hit those milestones. And if they have questions along the way, if there's downswings along the way, great. I mean, we can always talk about that. But I think the most important thing is to remember that it's a marathon and not a sprint. So that's a quick summary of how I would best take advantage of private coaching. And this is, of course, something that, because of the nature of this course, I'm going to have a dedicated area in the Discord channel to talk about private coaching in general, CFPs, staking, working with me, whatever it is that's interesting or relevant to you when it comes to this work.